Welcome to a short video called Introduction to the Incident Command System, brought to you by the BC Métis Federation. This brief introduction to the Incident Command System, or ICS as it's commonly referred to, is intended to give you a high-level overview of what it is and how it is used in BC. It's a good thing for the BCMF and its members to understand where it can fit in if it is going to have any sort of participation in an emergency incident or event. What is the Incident Command System? Quite simply put, it is a tool for organizing resources around a common set of objectives. ICS is used in many countries and organizations around the world because it helps the many players in emergency management think and speak the same, and it allows them to know how to work together. The great thing about ICS is that it can be used to organize just about anything. Anything from the Olympic Games, to a live conference, to responding to a local emergency incident, to organizing the multi-year recovery to a large disaster. There's even rumors that large weddings have been planned using ICS. There's no reason why that wouldn't work. Most response and support agencies in emergency management are trained in ICS and use it to organize their activities. In British Columbia, all provincial government ministries and agencies are required to follow the BC Emergency Management System, or BCEMS as it's commonly referred to, which includes the use of ICS. Here you see the ICS reference in their most recent BCEMS document. And note at the bottom of this example page here, the primary management functions. That organization chart will come back several times in this short introductory course. Local governments, such as municipalities or regional districts, use ICS to structure their emergency operation centers. Non-government organizations, such as the Salvation Army or Red Cross or a host of others, will use ICS. Trans Mountain, in their geographic response planning section, has a specific incident command system guide for the general public to review. BC Wildfire Service folks use it, BC Search and Rescue folks use it, and a host of others. One of the things that makes ICS successful is having everyone trained to the same standards and using the same business practices and terminology. For example, a planning section chief from one community or organization should be able to step into the Emergency Operations Center for another, get a short briefing on what's happening, and then hit the ground running. There's a reason why wildfire teams from Canada, Australia, or the US can work in each other's system quite easily. And that reason is because they are all trained to a similar standard and use ICS pretty much the same way. ICS has a few advantages. First, it is scalable. What that means is that it can grow and shrink in a fairly short period of time to meet the current needs of the emergency event. Second, it uses a tool called Management by Objectives to identify needs and build an emergency response and support organization to meet those needs. Management by Objectives, or MBO as it is usually called, allows you to set your objectives for the emergency event. It then allows you to establish your strategies to meet those objectives and then identify your tactics to meet those strategies. What works very well is if you use MBO with something called PPOST. PPOST simply stands for Priorities, Problems, Objectives, Strategies, and Tactics. Note the last three are Management by Objectives. PPOST allows you to identify your community or organizational priorities and then develop a list of current and potential problems. When you think about it, problems often occur when there are conflicting priorities between communities and/or organizations. Once you know your priorities and those of other response or support agencies during an event, it is often easier to recognize the sources of conflict and work towards a solution. Once you know your priorities and any problems, you can then use PPOST to build out your support organization if need be. Let's get back to more about the advantages of ICS. The third great thing about ICS is that it provides a common organization structure that anyone who uses it will immediately recognize and know where they fit into the scheme of things. Remember this org chart from earlier on? An emergency operations center org chart can look like this, or any variant thereof. The basic ICS organization has 5 core functions. First, there's the leadership, or as they are commonly referred to in ICS lexicon, command staff. They basically run things. You'll typically have an EOC director or at site level an incident commander. If the event's large enough, there could be a deputy EOC director or deputy incident commander at site level. You'll have a risk management officer of some sort. This position is also commonly referred to as safety officer. You'll have a public information officer to handle all of the media management and information management coming into and leaving from the Emergency Operations Center, and a liaison officer who's a point of contact with the many other supporting agencies and organizations. Your management staff are comprised of ops, planning, logistics, and finance. The operations section, well, they do things. Typically, there's an operations section chief. If the event is large enough or complex enough, there could very well be a deputy. There could be branch directors. It's not uncommon for a large area to be impacted by a major event and each community be identified as a specific branch with the director running the operations and support for it. There can be divisions. Quite often, these are broken up geographically. You could have groups of assets that can come together to meet a specific objective or achieve a certain strategy. Or you could have strike teams, which are a collection of similar assets that go out and meet a single tactic to meet the strategies and objectives. This is what your operations section could look like with the branches under it. The planning section. Well, they plan things, as the name suggests. There will be a planning section chief. There could be different unit leaders. This is where a lot of the what-if type advanced planning comes together. So there's quite often an advanced planning unit. And also there may be a collection of technical or subject matter experts. And this is what your planning section or chart could look like. And then there's logistics. Well, they get things. There's a logistics section chief. Quite often there's a deputy chief in logistics as well. And then there can be different branch directors and unit leaders also. And again, your logistics section could look something like this. And finally, finance. Well, they pay for things. There will be a finance section chief, and then there will be a number of unit leaders to track costs, ensure procurement, and what have you. And this is what your finance section could look like. But there's also something called the policy group. Typically, this is community leadership at the local government or First Nations community level. The policy group provides guidance only. It can be made up of elected officials or senior organizational leaders, depending on the structure and the organization. It'll involve the EOC director, and there may be legal advisors if necessary. It's important to note that the policy group is not actively involved in EOC management or site level operations. They provide guidance only. Now, in the case of the BC Métis Federation, it may make sense to be an agency representative in some organizations and events. And this is where you would fit in here. An example of that could be a large spill on coastal waters involving an EOC and command post run by the Canadian Coast Guard. Or maybe there's a spill inland and Trans Mountain or somebody like that has got their EOC set up. So the agency representative role by somebody from BCMF might make sense. But maybe some of the members have got heavy equipment, or maybe they have certain technical skills. So there could be roles for BCMF members fitting in at the operations section somewhere, or maybe in the planning section somewhere. A few key things to consider about the incident command system. The boxes in the ICS org chart represent functions, not people. By that, we mean you don't have to have an individual in each box. One person can assume the functions and responsibilities of two or more boxes if it makes sense. There will be a set planning cycle for each operational period with scheduled activities. These can be section meetings, these can be briefings, and what have you. So it's important to get to know what that planning cycle is. If you're an agency representative, you will want to make sure that you are involved as appropriate at the different stages of the planning cycle. An agency representative may be invited into some of the activities related to situational awareness and possibly strategic planning, but you likely won't be invited to everything, as there may be conversations and considerations that have security or confidentiality around them. An agency representative should have some level of decision-making authority on behalf of his or her organization. The supervisory span of control in any ICS organization never exceeds 5 to 7 people or functions. Some organizations may look a little bit different or call positions or functions something else, but when you get down to it, they are all pretty much practicing ICS. Training in the Incident Command System can be found at the Justice Institute of BC, or JIBC as it's commonly referred to, at www.jibc.ca/programs-courses, or ICS Canada at www.icscanada.ca.